Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel. If you've been following along, you know that we are working our way through the Order of the Written Word challenges, and today we are going to talk about the Refinement Ritual. This is the challenge that focuses on one of the most important and often overlooked or avoided parts of writing, and that is revision. If you've been drafting and creating all year long, the Refinement Ritual is your opportunity to polish and perfect that work. So let's get into what the Refinement Ritual is all about and how you can use it to forward your own work. The Refinement Ritual is one of 3 core challenges in the Order of the Written Word. The goal is to take an existing piece of work, whether that's a novel, a short story collection, or a poetry collection, and turn that rough draft into something polished and ready for the world. Now, I don't give word count recommendations here because it is based on an entire project and it's kind of hard to do word counts when you're revising. However, I do recommend aiming for something that is a full work, like a 50,000 to 75,000 word novel or collection of a similar size, because you do want to still challenge yourself a little bit. So don't just pick a 10,000 word short story and revise that. If you are, pick a few of them. Unlike drafting, which is all about generating new words, revision is the process of fine-tuning, restructuring, and sharpening your manuscript until it really shines. It's the part where you get to mold and shape your story, making sure that your characters are well developed and your language connects with your readers. And don't forget about those pesky plot holes. So let's go over some tips on how to make the most of your refinement ritual. This might sound counterintuitive, but before you get into revision, it's really important to take a step back from your work. If you've just finished your draft, give yourself a little time, whether it's a few days or a couple weeks, just to distance yourself from it. Personally, my minimum is about 3 months, but I have gone up to a year. And I know this video is coming out when there isn't much left of October, but you can start now and let your work rest for a week. It'll still be something. The thing with letting it rest is that when you come back with fresh eyes, you'll be way more objective. You'll be able to see problems that you didn't notice when you were deep in the weeds of drafting, and you'll have a clearer sense of where things might need to be tightened up or reworked. And a more positive side of that is that you may just like your writing a bit better because you won't be as close to it as you were when you were, head down in the drafting phase till all hours of the night, losing your mind. When it comes to revision, you don't want to get bogged down with the small details right away. Instead, start with the big picture elements like plot, structure, character development, and pacing. Ask yourself, does the story flow logically from beginning to end? Are the stakes high enough to keep readers invested? Do the characters feel fully fleshed out with their own arcs and motivations? And are there any scenes that feel redundant or unnecessary? This is your chance to make those major changes. You can rearrange scenes, cut out entire sections, or even rewrite chapters if you need to. I know, it's scary, but don't be afraid to make bolder choices here, because the goal is to get the overall structure right before you move on to more detailed work. And the thing is, if you do scrap some writing that you love, just keep it aside and you can use it on another project. One of the most important parts of revision is making sure your characters are consistent and that their motivations are clear. Your protagonist should have a defined purpose, and every action they take should connect to it. If their actions seem off or don't fit their personality, readers will notice. Take some time to review your characters and their journeys and really connect with them. Are their decisions believable? Are they growing and changing in meaningful ways throughout the story? If a character's arc feels incomplete or inconsistent, this is the time to fix it. Another big part of revision is, of course, dialogue. During the drafting phase, it's easy to write dialogue that feels stiff or unrealistic or rushed, depending on how quickly you draft. Now that you're revising, you can go back and make sure that every line of dialogue feels natural and serves a purpose. Make sure your characters' voices are distinct from one another, and that each line is moving the story forward in some way. If a conversation isn't adding anything new, whether it's revealing character, advancing the plot, or building tension, consider cutting or reworking it. Now, this doesn't mean that you can be creative and throw in some dialogue just for fun, but you really don't want to overdo it. Otherwise, you risk losing your reader's interest. If you do find that your characters are falling flat or sort of merging all together, I always recommend looking to real people or even other fictional characters to sort of map them against a little bit. You don't want to totally Mary Sue or Gary Stewart or steal someone else's character, but it can be a great inspiration just to see how different dialogue can be presented if you're having trouble there. One of the hardest parts of revision is learning to let go of things that aren't working. If a scene or chapter doesn't serve the story, even if you love it, you need to let it go. Be ruthless in trimming excess, whether it's unnecessary scenes, repetitive descriptions, or filler dialogue. This step is about making your story the best that it can be, and sometimes that means cutting out the parts that aren't essential, even if they were fun to write. And like I said before, you can hold on to that writing and incorporate it into something else in the future. Once you've made your big picture revisions and done some refining, it's going to be incredibly helpful to get feedback from others. Again, something that is kind of scary, I know. But whether it's from a critique partner, beta readers, or a reading group, outside perspectives can help you see your story in a new light. And if you do plan on publishing this work, people are going to read it, so best get started on that right now. In the Order, we have a great Discord community made up of over 300 helpful creatives who would love to help you out, and they will be very friendly about it too. When you're looking for feedback, ask specific questions. For example, did the plot make sense from start to finish? Were the characters' motivations clear and compelling? And were there any parts that felt slow or confusing? You're also going to want to tailor these questions to your own story, of course. For example, if you are writing a fantasy novel and have a magic system, you could ask if they caught anything within that system that didn't make sense. Take the feedback you receive and use it to guide your final revisions. Remember, you don't have to take every suggestion, but if multiple people point out the same issue, it's probably worth looking into. And now we get really into the smaller details. This is where you'll focus on things like sentence structure, word choice, and grammar. Tighten up your prose, eliminating unnecessary words, and make sure your language is as clear and precise as possible. A great tool for this is the Hemingway editor, which will cut out the excess noise, and then you can sort of decide from there if you want to take those suggestions specifically or then use those to make your story a little more concise and then expand on them to add your creativity back in, if that makes sense. If you're working on a novel, this is also the time to make sure that your descriptions are really vivid and that your world building is consistent, because that is gonna, as big as it is, it does hit on more of a granular level in your work. For poetry, look at the rhythm and flow of each line and make sure every word is pulling its weight. And we come to this again. Just like the other challenges in the Order, you can use scroll work sessions to keep yourself focused during the refinement ritual. These writing sprints can especially be helpful when you're tackling tougher revision work where you do want some feedback, like reworking a scene or fine-tuning your dialogue. By setting a timer and focusing on one task at a time, you'll be able to make steady progress without getting too overwhelmed. And while our tracker on Discord is word-based, you can join and just write like one per page or something like that. It's really about using that timer, not necessarily focusing on an actual word count, though if you finish a paragraph, you can count all those words, totally up to you. But it's about having those timed sessions and being able to speak with other writers and get some feedback in between, or just take a bit of a break. And that's my last video discussing our specific challenges. I hope this little series has been helpful. One last thing I would mention is that revision is not a one and done process. You will likely need to go through multiple rounds before your novel or collection is really complete. During this challenge, we recommend doing one revision. This can be your first revision, final revision, or something in the middle. The goal is to do it in its entirety, and if you do complete your work in November, you will be able to submit it to the Stygian Society for publication consideration. If you haven't signed up for the Order of the Written Word yet, there is still time. The link is in the description down below, and it will probably be in the pinned comment as well, if I remember. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more tips, updates, and writing motivation throughout the event. I'll be here to guide you through the entire process and cheer you on as we tackle this challenge together. And if you want to try out a great writing tool, I recommend our sponsor, Scrivener. Scrivener is a word processing program and outliner designed for writers. It provides a management system for documents, notes, and metadata, allowing you to organize notes, concepts, research, and whole documents for easy access and reference. Once you hop on the Discord server, you'll gain access to a 20% discount. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, I hope that you are having a day that is just as wonderful as you are. Bye!